Hi my friend, in this video we're going to be making Ghetto Tech House bass inspired by CLOONEE's song Sippin Yak. And we're going to find out if we can do this in under 20 minutes using the 80-20 rule of bass production. What you're listening to right now is the track that we'll be working on. And what you're looking at right now is the Ableton project file that we'll be working on. In particular, we're going to focus on this bass group here, and we're going to go in order of how I built it out so that you can follow along when you're creating your own basses. In particular, I'm going to show you how to get to a professional quality level with very fast, with only 20% of the effort, by working with a reference track like you can see here to quickly guide your decisions, as well as effortlessly mixing as you go by using powerful templates, one knob effects like you can see here, and other Ableton racks. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video. We'll be doing a full recap of the 80-20 rule so you can also make bass very, very quickly as well. So yeah, all in all, this took me about, I would say 15 to 20 minutes to recreate this bass and adjust it so that it's a little bit more original. And this entire track, as you can see here when I zoom out, is fully mixed, mastered, and arranged and ready to go. And that only took about 5 or 6 hours for me to fully finish this one. So if you want help finishing songs faster as well, I've made you a free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that I use to completely finish one new song every single week, just like this one. Just visit the link that's on screen now or in the description to grab the ultimate song finishing toolkit for free. And if you want to take things to the next level, you'll also be able to find a link to this video's project files in the description as well. So with that said, let's jump into this. All right. So let's take a look at the bass. So to start off, let's just have a listen to it with the drums and without the drums. Cool. So first off, let's take a look at the pattern. It's usually the first thing that I'll do. And actually, I'm going to turn off a few of these layers. So when building out the bass, what I usually like to do is start off with just like a Subtrack. So it's basically just playing a sine wave. It's like a nice deep basic tone, not a lot of character, and this way you can really focus on making sure you're hitting the right notes, you're playing in key, and that the note selection is really dialed in. That's kind of a big tip right there. Now let's take a look at the notes. And so I found this to be an A sharp minor, and basically the way that I built this out was usually starting with just like one bar like this, and then what I did was I actually have the track, of course, CLOONEE, Sippin Yak in here, and mapped the S key so I can flick back and forth. It's ours. So it's similar, it's not the exact same, that's kind of what I was going for, that way it can be used as an actual track to release at some point. Main thing that I did when listening back and forth to this is those kind of like accent notes, do, 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 do. That's kind of what I was keying in on. So I built those out first, so I feel like it sounded more like this at first. It's kind of getting those main notes in just by flicking back and forth, using my ear. And then I added in these additional notes on the C sharp here that I've muted. It added more like a cool rolling kind of feel that I like. So let me throw that back on. It's subtle, but it adds, I feel like, some weight and some groove to it. And so added that in there. And then the idea, yeah, that's basically it in terms of the notes. Then in terms of the sound selection, what I'm running it into is this thing I've created called a V-sub, and it's just running into operator, mostly just taking care of having a nice pure sine wave for that sub sound. And then there's a couple of extra features on here, so different levels of saturation or drive. So I just build up some saturation here to kind of add a bit more crispiness to the sound, so it adds some character, but also the saturation fills up the sound a little bit more and makes it so it can be a bit easier to hear on things like laptop speakers and poo-poo speakers and that kind of thing. Then we have a little bit of a scoop going on here, so I'm dialing in a little bit at 600 hertz or so. And Then there are options to adjust attack and sustain, as well as the decay to kind of tighten up the sound. Didn't do too much of that, to be honest. But what I did do is I have this one knob sidechain here. So what I usually like to do, if you've been following the channel, is instead of sidechaining it to the kick and all that every time, there's just a shaper device set to quarter notes, adjusting the gain on utility, and that way when I'm building this out, I can just adjust the sidechain with one knob here and just move on and get really quick with it. So that's kind of the idea. Once sound selection is complete and you got the notes complete, next thing is the main thing is really comparing the reference track to your bass and trying to get the volume correct. So what the idea is to flick back and forth kind of rhythmically on time between your track and the reference track and really pay attention to the sub sound. So we're going to try to ignore that high end of the bass and really try to listen to like the fullness and that low end and try to match it with the volume. So that looks and sounds a little bit like this. Sounds close, I would say, or as close as it's gonna get, but like that is a quick trick right there. So now we're sounding pretty full, it's pretty, the bass notes are correct. The next thing I like to do is add in an additional mid bass layer. And this main thing is to handle kind of more that character and the vibe of the bass. So let me turn that on and let you listen to that for a bit. And soloed. So this is what it sounds like by itself. It sounds puny and weak, but when combined with the sub, it sounds full and cohesive. So let's jump into this. So first thing is the note selection. So when it comes to the note selection, a little trick I like to do is on these mid bass layers, instead of all ins, which is going to look at the MIDI that's on the track, you can set it to a different in. So I set it to subs. So that means that the MIDI track here is automatically routing into the bass guitar mid bass layer here. And that's why you'll notice that there's no MIDI clips here. And so what's cool about this is it allows you to, as you're building up the song, if you want to make any changes to the bass, that's automatically going to be changed over to your mid bass layer. So it's all acting as one. You don't have to copy and paste over the MIDI clips a million times, which sucks and is annoying. And then so what I'm doing here in terms of the sound design is, first thing is when doing this trick, I always recommend having a pitch device here, so that if like when the sub sounds perfect at a certain octave, your mid bass might need to go up an octave or down an octave to sound correct. And so instead of having to copy over the MIDI clip and then flip that MIDI clip's octave over, you can just use the pitch device. So in this case, I went up an octave and now it sounds tight. Without it, it sounded like this. Still kind of cool actually, but wasn't cutting through as much and a little too low and grumbly. So just like that, it's cutting through a lot more. I'm running this into a bass guitar sample that I like and I built into a sampler device. If you want access to any of this stuff, by the way, all this stuff is the project files is in the description. So you can extract everything and look at everything a little bit more in detail. But other than that, in this bass track, I did bring down the sustain a little bit to kind of tighten up the sound a little bit so it's tighter against the sub. So a little bit of kind of a cohesion kind of thing going on there. And then I did switch the circuit of the filter to SMP and brought up the drive a little bit there. Then running into kind of the classic channel strip that I like to have as well, starting with an EQ. In this case, we're removing a bunch of the low at probably 200 hertz, 230 hertz. The idea is to remove a bunch here so that the sub is taking care of a lot of the low end and it's not clashing with the mid bass at all. Then a little bit of some trickery going on here. So I used a low pass filter to remove a bunch of the high, and then as well as I think it's here, right? Yeah. No, it was here. And then also using a high shelf filter to bring down some of the high mids in a more natural way. Because if you only use the low pass filter, I find it can sound a little bit too dull and unnatural and remove some of the important high end information. So I used a combination of the two in this example. Then after that, running into this one knob width plugin, which is this free wider plugin from Polyverse. And basically I've just mapped the essential knobs so I can quickly reach for the right knobs without having to open DSTs and get distracted by the UI and all that, and just kind of quickly focus and get it done by ear. So bringing in some width here, as well as I monoed it actually, I think is what I actually did here. So wanted the sound to be a little bit tighter and centralized. Then we're running into the one knob sidechain like mentioned before, so it's pumping, it's making room for the kick, and then a little bit of one knob saturation using Ableton Saturator to fill out the sound a little bit. Other than that, the main thing was to dial in this mid bass with the volume while flicking back and forth. Close. Volume is going to really be the fast track to your stuff sounding good. So comparing your volumes against the volumes of reference track is a huge tip there. And then other than that, another cool thing about having the subs and mid bass separate, as you could have hopefully caught on there, was while having them as separate tracks, you have one that's really focused on the low end, and you have another one that's more focused on the vibe and kind of the character and the sound design. So you can build out the sound, like the sound of that mid bass, without having to worry about how any of the processing is affecting the low end, because that's on a completely separate track. Other than that, I'm running it into a little bit of group processing here. I'm gonna go over this in a future portion of the video or another video, but basically just doing a little bit of New York style parallel compression, a little bit of saturation, which is also actually being done in parallel, and then a little bit of clipping just to get rid of some of the tops, add some headroom, makes things a little bit easier during the final mastering stage. Hi, my friend, Matt from Best Friends Club here, and if you've been paying attention, then you probably have already figured out what the 80-20 rule is when it comes to building out your basses. So the goal here is to get 80% of the result with only 20% of the time, energy, or effort. And because the first key to the 80-20 rule of bass is to use a reference track, we're making sure that we're very easily hitting 80% of a very professional sounding track. In particular, we focus on nailing the notes that our bass is playing, the sound design of our bass, as well as the volume of our bass track compared to that reference track. This just keeps things fast and super focused. The second key of the 80-20 rule here is to layer your basses so that you have the maximum amount of control over your bass's melody, low end, and the character or vibe. The third and final key is to repurpose your old projects by adding old project files, racks, and entire groups to your Ableton collection folder. By creating a suite of powerful templates, Ableton racks, and one knob effects that you've personalized and curated over time, it's going to make sure that you get a higher quality result faster. If you'd like to get a head start by downloading all the racks, templates, and all the files that you've seen me use in the Ableton project file for this video, or if you'd just like to take a closer look at any of the techniques or tracks you saw me work on in this video at your own pace, you can find a link to this video's project files on screen now, and at the second link that's in the YouTube description. I'm recreating a different song from the Beatport top charts every single week and making the project files available to anyone who wants them. You'll also get access to a private Discord where you can ask me and the community questions, as well as shared tracks for feedback. If you or your music are not quite ready for a shot in the arm like that, I've also made you a completely free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that have helped me figure out how to completely finish one new song each and every single week. And you can grab that free Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit by visiting the first link that's in the YouTube description here. However, if you just feel like staying on YouTube for now, that's totally fine. Save that link for later and check out this playlist of videos where I remake basses from other songs from the Beatport top charts. Or if you want to take what you learned in this video to the next level, definitely check out this video right here.